Hello and welcome back to Crafted by Corie. If you're new, I'm Corie. Welcome to my channel, and if you were returning, thank you as always for being here. You guys are amazing and I really sincerely appreciate you. I have some more Christmas in July for you, so let's go ahead and get right on into the crafting.
DIY number one. So for this project, I am going to be using some hairspray and this make your own ornament that I picked up either from Michael's, Hobby Lobby, or the Dollar Tree. I'm not sure where this one came from. You can get it at all three. But I have put some of my hairspray, and it just needs to be a regular non-aerosol hairspray that you can take the lid off of and pour hairspray into. It doesn't matter what kind, but I poured a good amount in there, swirled it around, made sure that all of the insides were coated, and then poured the excess back into the hairspray bottle. And now I'm making a little paper cone. You could use a funnel, and dumping in white glitter that I picked up at Walmart. And so I am just making sure that this is all coated, shaking it around a little bit, making sure that all of my glitter is sticking to the hairspray, and then I'm going to kind of set it over and let it dry a little bit. Well, I guess I'm going to give it some more glitter first. But just want to make sure that that is all coated. Now I'm going to be taking some leftovers from my rub-on transfers. These were the ones that had that pretty wreath shape, and I had used the wreaths already, and now I'm coming in and first going to write out Merry Christmas. I'm just going real slow with this. Let me know if you would like me to do a DIY with hand lettering, but at actual speed, because when I do this, you guys, I speed it up by about 3 times so that I don't bore you to tears. But if you're interested in seeing a hand lettering tutorial, just leave me a comment and I'll be happy to do that. So now I'm coming in with those little transfer leftovers and I am rubbing them on around my Merry Christmas, and I'm going to create a wreath shape. So in actuality, the wreath that was original to these rub-on transfers would have been too small for us to write anything inside of it. So it actually works out well that we've got all these extra little pieces. So I'm just going to keep going around and around my words and just placing them where I want them. As you rub these on, you want to gently peel it back a little bit at a time to make sure that your whole transfer has gone down. And then once you are certain that all of it has transferred, you can peel away that plastic piece. But you don't want to go too quick because sometimes it doesn't all come off, and it's a lot easier to get it all on the way that it's supposed to go if you just take your time with peeling that away and making sure it's all adhered before you commit fully, if you know what I mean. So just checking to see if I want to add any more pieces, and I think I've determined that that's pretty much all I need. So now I'm coming in with my Wineberry paint marker. This is by Arteza, and I am just doing little tiny dots around on the stems of these little greenery pieces, if you will, and just making little berries, so to speak. So once I have that all set up, and once it's dry, I am going to go ahead and put through some satin wired ribbon, and I'm just going to tie a little bow at the top. So I'm leaving a gap for it to be used as my hanger, and then I'm just going to tie a regular shoelace bow. So just like you would tie your shoes, I am just going to do that, and I'm going to manipulate it until I get it to the right shape and the right size. And you could probably use regular ribbon with this as well. I just tend to like the wired ribbon because I can make my bows stand up a little bit better, and I just like the way that it looks. So that I'm going to come in and dovetail my ends, just folding the ribbon in half and clipping it off. And there you have it. I love this. Let me know what you think. DIY number two. One of these customizable Ornaments, and I've got my hairspray out again, and this time we're going to be using blue glitter. So you can see I'm just swirling that around again. Once I have it coated, I'm creating my little paper cone, dumping in my blue glitter, and I'm going to make sure that I've got the whole inside of it coated. And I had a little extra glitter there in my thing that I didn't realize I had. So now I'm taking a white Arteza paint marker and I'm kind of creating a horizon line about maybe a third up from the bottom of my ornament, and I'm going to color in that entire bottom part. Now, as you can see, it's not a solid coat. It's got some kind of dimension to it, and I actually like that. I am not concerned that it looks a little mottled because I feel like it gives it dimension and little shadowing effects. So I actually loved the way that that turned out. And now I am just painting on some lines that are going to serve as a tree trunk and branches. This is going to be a little winter tree, and I'm just making just a bunch of little V shapes or Y shapes, however you want to think of them, and just making it the way that makes my heart happy. And I'll make the trunk a little bit wider at the bottom where it meets the horizon, if you will. And I'm going to do that all the way around. So I'm going to alternate with shorter trees that might be off in the distance a little bit. And then I'm going to do larger trees. And I'm just going to alternate every other one. And I ended up with 3 large trees and 3 of these little trees here. So I'll show you again how I did that. Just really brought it up. And trees are really a simple thing to draw like this, especially if you're not getting into all of the foliage, which we are not because these trees are bare for the winter. So just bringing out the branches, and there's no wrong way to do this. If you think about a tree in nature, those little branches go every which direction, and they have all different shapes and sizes, and sometimes they get broken off. So your tree does not need to be perfect, so to speak. So once I got all the way around, I finished off my one last little tree, and I did let that dry for a little bit. Once it was dry, I came in with my red Arteza paint marker, and I am making little teeny tiny cardinals. And I know it's hard to see here, but they're really not a whole lot more than a couple of little dots. I've got a dot for the body that I kind of let drag a little bit to have a little swish for the tail, and I put a teeny tiny little dot on the other side for the head. So I put a few cardinals here and there in my trees, and now I am just going to go ahead and fashion a bow for the hanger. And I'm doing this the same way that we did with the first one. I'm just wrapping it through, tying a little tie your shoelace bow. This is another wired ribbon, but it's a little bit sheer and it's got the satin along the sides. And I'm going to finish it off the same way I did the other one and just kind of form my bow a little bit. I love this. I think it is darling, but let me know what you think. DIY number 3. All right, I'm putting on the gloves for this one. We are going to be using a Dollar Tree cookie tin. I think a cookie pan, baking sheet, whatever you want to call this. I have my tin snips, and I am going to go ahead and cut this. I'm going to cut the border off of it first, so that a whole edge I'm going to cut away, and I'm going to just be using the center part. So once I've got the edge all cut away, I kind of flattened it out to make it easier to cut. I'm now going to cut strips, and these strips are about 2 inches, 1.5 to 2 inches wide, I would say. And I was able to get 6 strips out of it. And we're going to need 3 strips for each ornament. So this was something I saw online. I don't remember if it was Pinterest or Etsy or Kirkland's. It might have been Kirkland's. I can't remember. But I saw something that inspired me to create this, and I actually love the way they turned out, so you'll have to let me know what you think. But once I had my strips, I'm kind of bending them in. Now, if you're going to work with these cookie sheets the way that I am, you definitely want to make sure you put on gloves because they get sharp, right? I actually did end up slicing my little thumb a little tiny bit because I was doing something silly after I took my gloves off. So you just want to be careful. So I'm bending all those sharp edges in towards the ornament. And you can see that I'm actually kind of making it arched a little bit. Now, if I had to do it over again, because I wasn't really thinking, I would actually make 2 bumps and make the middle skinny. Because when we form these, we're going to make them circles. And I really had wanted the wide part to be on the edges, not at the bottom, which is where they're going to end up being. So hopefully that makes sense what I'm trying to explain, but I still think that they turned out super cute. But I'm basically making little loops with all of them and I am putting them all together. Now the hot glue doesn't like to hold real well with this aluminum, and neither does the super glue. So I ended up kind of unbending them at the ends a little bit and tucking them into one another, and then bending it back over itself and kind of pinching the sides a little bit to get them to hold. So they really actually are holding on their own. Eventually I was able to use a little bit of hot glue to fasten them all together. And that seems to be working fine, but I'm also, as you can see, coming in with, oh, here I am with the hot glue. I'm adding a little bit of twine, and then I'm going to use that to also bind these 3 little hoops, mini hoops together. So I'm just weaving that in and out between all of the different little circles and just making sure that it's going to be nice and secure and not come apart on me. And then down at the bottom, I just used some more hot glue to get that fastened together. So a little bit more hot glue, you know, we find a way or make a way when we craft, right? So, but I definitely did struggle with getting this to hold together with the hot glue. Eventually, I got it to work, but it didn't like it so much. So I did the same thing with the second one, and now I am using some more twine to create a hanger. And I'm not sure what I was doing there, but figured out how long I needed that to be. I'm going to go ahead and tie that off so that I've got my little hanger, and then I'll go ahead and I'll create a hanger for the other one as well. I just created another loop and used a little hot glue and attached it to the top of the twine that was already there. So now I am taking some chalk paint. This is Castle by Home Decor, which is a plaid product. And I'm using my little makeup sponge and I am just dabbing it all over. This is just knocking down that shiny, shiny silver. And it's not a complete coat, right? Because I'm actually going for a galvanized look here. So I do want some of that silver to remain. And then once I had my castle on, I'm now coming in with a little bit of black, and now I'm also going to add a little tiny bit of white. You can see I just dropped right off the lid some white paint there that is just going to give me a perfect amount. So I'm just using that same sponge so that it helps me blend these colors and makes it a little bit mottled and looking a little bit worn and aged. And so once I had that all done, I am pulling out some of my Dollar Tree ribbon. This is a red and black little gingham or buffalo check ribbon, making some tiger shoelace bows and just seeing how it's going to look on the top there. I'm not attaching it just yet. I'll attach them in a little while. But cutting off the ends, I made 2 bows, obviously, because I've got 2 ornaments, and just getting them ready. Now I have a pick from this is from Hobby Lobby, left over in my stash. And this is actually a spring pick, but it always reminds me of evergreen, so I'm using it as evergreen. So I'm cutting it down as you know I always do and trying to decide how much of it I want to use. Now I'm going to go ahead and attach my bow with some hot glue, and I'm attaching that to the twine on the top there so I'm not having an issue with it sticking to the metal. I've also got these little garland pipberry garlands, excuse me, from the Dollar Tree, and I'm cutting a little piece off of there that I'm going to attach as well. I'll put my greenery on top of that. And then I also have a couple of little jingle bells that I pulled out of my stash. That's what those little round little things are sitting there that look kind of like berries at the moment from my vantage point on this little screen that I'm looking at. But they are little jingle bells, and I set them right in the center of the bow with the greenery and the pip berries, and that's it. And I think these are so sweet.
DIY number 4.
Okay, so I have another ornament. This is another customizable ornament, and I have this roll of cord. It's like a holiday cord from the Container Store, and I just thought it was really, really pretty. It's got a little tiny sheen to it, but it's red, white, and green, and I just thought, as soon as I saw it, that I wanted to make an ornament with it. So I am attaching it with hot glue around the top of the neck of my ornament, and I'm going to just wrap this around, and I'm using a good amount of hot glue to get it started. So definitely all the way around the top, and then I'm going to go ahead and start wrapping it. And then as I start working my way down onto the globe part of the ornament, I'll start using a little bit more hot glue here and there. Once I felt like it was pretty well established on there, I was able to just go ahead and just keep twisting it around and around until I got to about the equator of the ornament. So the mid section, because then when you start down the other side, the cord has a tendency to want to slip, and so that's where you want to start using your hot glue again. Now this roll of cord was 30 feet. It was 10 yards, 30 feet. I was hopeful that it was going to be plenty for this larger ornament, and it actually was not. I would judge about 2 feet shy. So if you want to do this and you want to make sure that you have enough cord for the entire thing, I would recommend doing a smaller ornament. So this is one of those larger ornaments. I know they normally come in a couple of sizes. This is one of those big ones. Well, you can kind of see it's about the size of a softball. So if you are doing the same exact thing and only have 10 yards, I'd probably use the baseball sized ornaments, and then you'll have plenty. But you can see here I've gotten down to the second half of the ornament, and so I'm having to use a little bit of hot glue here and there to just make sure that it stays in place and it doesn't start sliding down the ornament. So when I got to the end, you can see I'm so close, and I was holding my breath and hoping I was going to have enough, and ultimately I was just a little bit shy here. So I'll show you in a second what I end up doing, but you can see I was just super close to having enough. So if you do the smaller ornament, you definitely will have a sufficient quantity. So I'm just using the hot glue, getting this all wrapped up on here. And you can see I've just got this little tiny area left. So I figured, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead. I knew that I had some shiny chenille stems in the same shade of green. So I grabbed a few of those. I think I ended up using like 1.5 of them. That's why I was saying I think I was only shy about 2 feet of the cord. And I just twisted and twisted and twisted and made sure that it was set in place using my hot glue. At the end, I just kind of cut it off, and then I was tucking under the little end of it. I kind of pulled it up, tucked it under, and then pressed it down, and then used a little hot glue underneath there and just smooshed it in there, and it was all good. So now I am kind of stretching out the lid for the cap for my ornament and tucking it down over top of the cord. And then I'm going to use some of this Dollar Tree sequined ribbon to cover up the silver part of and just make it look prettier, right? Because I kind of had it all stretched out to get it to fit back over top, and so now we're just making it pretty. And now I'm going to use a green ribbon. I'm going to do exactly what we did with the other ornaments. I don't know if you've noticed, but I kind of like the ribbon ties. So this is what I decided to do for this particular ornament as well. But this time, instead of doing the tie your shoelace bow, I actually tied it in a knot at the top, and then I made little loopies. So you know what? Jury's out on which is easier, to be honest. You could do it either way. If you do what I'm doing right now, I'd probably make my tails a little bit longer. But you can see I had tied a knot, made a loop with another piece of ribbon, and then put that down and tied the ends around of from the knot, tied that around the loops again. I probably would make that a little bit longer. But when you tie it directly into a bow, you just have a little bit more manipulating to do as far as making sure your loop stays where you want it. But I think this is super cute. Let me know what you think. DIY number 5. All right, so I have some of these tags. These are, would you call them galvanized tags from the Dollar Tree? And I have a sticker book, you guys, and I think these stickers are so pretty. A lot of them are actually really beautiful. The one challenge is that a lot of them have a white border around them, which makes them look like stickers when you try to put them on something like this. So I'm going through and I'm looking for the stickers that do not have that white border, and those are the ones that I'm using for this. So I'm just placing them down, and these are going to be really simple. This is the kind of project you can do with your kids, with your grandkids if you have grandkids. This is such an easy and fun DIY, and they come out so cute, like really, really pretty. And instead of using hot glue, I would just recommend school glue if you're going to be working with the kids on these. But they can decorate with whatever stickers they want, right? And they can just use their little imaginations until, until the cows come home, so to speak. But so you can see I had picked out a Merry Christmas. I picked out a little blue pine tree with Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. And now I'm using the little letters stickers and doing joy. With my joy ornament, I was kind of wondering if maybe I should have used a little bit of white chalk paint behind it just to help that pop a little bit. I was hopeful that once I was done, it was going to be visible enough, and when the light hits it the right way, it is, but when the light isn't hitting it the right way, I start wondering if I should have used the chalk paint. So just a heads up that that might be something to consider. So now I'm using my ribbons from the Dollar Tree. I've got my black and red gingham again, and now I've got a blue and white gingham. And then I have another Dollar Tree ribbon that I don't even know what I would call that, but it's just fun and festive. I don't know if there's a name for this type of ribbon. I'm sure there is, but I don't know what the name of it is. So using a little bit of hot glue, just a dab, because I don't want this to show under the ribbon. And so you got to be real careful and move real quick because the metal is cool. So the hot glue dries or cools very quickly. But a little bit of dab there, and then gluing it around the back. And when I overlap my ribbon, I always bend the little end underneath so that I have a nice finished edge. So if somebody were to turn it over and look at the back, it just looks nice and neat, and you don't have any kind of frayed edges showing. It all looks just finished. So I did that with top and bottom. You can see I folded that over, pressed it down, and that's it. So simple, so cute. I think these are sweet. And then I'm just using some of the twine that came with the little tags. And that's it. I love it. And I did the same thing with the rest of them as far as attaching the different ribbons. And like I said, you can get so creative with these and decorate them however you wish. I wanted to keep these just simple. But let me know what you think.
DIY number 6.
All right, another customizable ornament. And we are going to start out with chalk paint markers. Actually, this one might be an acrylic paint marker, but you know what, this one actually was the first one that I did. And I was hopeful that the paint markers would be a little bit more opaque, but they were pretty translucent. So you can see I'm looking at it, I'm like, that's not really showing up. What am I going to do here? I went ahead and I kept on it because I thought, you know what, I'm just going to keep on going with my little tree and see how it looks as I go. But to be honest, it was really hard to see what I was doing because I could see my hand through it, and again, it was translucent. So you might want to fill the inside, which I end up doing, before you actually paint your design on it. It'll just make it easier for you to see what you're doing. But I am just drawing a little pine tree. I'm using, as I mentioned, brown for the trunk, and now I'm coming in and just using a couple of different shades of green. And these are my Arteza paint markers, so they are paint. So I wanted to make sure I let them dry in between coats. And so this one was a forest green, and the other one, I'm trying to remember the colors, you guys. I'm going to have to look it up because it's not coming to my little brain at the moment. But you can use whatever colors suit your fancy, right? It doesn't have to be exactly what I'm using. Pick out a couple of different greens that you think will look nice together, and you can have at it. You can also use regular paint with a paintbrush if you want to do that. I just figured for me personally, I would have more control with the markers. So once I had the tree established, I went ahead and came in with my gold Arteza paint marker, and I am drawing a little star. And I'm sorry that it's really hard to see because I should have filled the inside of it first. To be honest, what I had intended to do was put fake snow in here, just some faux snow in the bottom of it and make it look real cute, but I eventually found that the whole thing needed a little bit of a backdrop. So now I'm just decorating it with all the little Christmas balls. And now on the back side of it, I am going to write Happy Holidays. And again, we can see the tree right through there. And I'm trying to write Happy Holidays on here, and it was challenging. It was challenging. So do yourself a favor and fill it in first with whatever you want to do. Whether you want to paint the inside of it, you can pour some acrylic paint inside and swish that around. If you use chalk paint, you can certainly do that as well. I have done that. I just find that it's best if you use a little bit of water with the chalk paint and thin it out a little bit first, but that is certainly an option as well. But I'm going back and using the good old hairspray method with the white glitter. You guys, you know I'm losing it when I have to search for the word glitter. It's been a long week. But at any rate, you can see this is starting to pop now a little bit more. Let me know what you think.
DIY number 7.
Okay, so I picked these little ornaments. They're ceramic ornaments up on Amazon, and they are meant specially for heat transfers and sublimation. So I am going to be using these with my Cricut heat press. I went into my little Cricut design studio and I found a heart shape in there, and I am just designing what I want to have on the ornament. I'm making the little heart gray so that I can see what the words are when I end up putting the words on it. I was looking for a little deer because I wanted to have some little fun emblem on there. So I found a couple of little deer that I wanted to try out. And once I decided on one, I got that sized appropriate. And then I went and looked for a font that I liked. And I am just making these for my nieces. So Alexa and Michaela, we call her Kayla, so Alexa and Kayla, and I am just getting these ornaments all set and I'm arranging them on my little canvas, if you will. So now I've got my Cricut Joy all set up. I have my heat infusible ink, excuse me, it's not heat transfer, it's infusible ink. I'm getting my little Easy Press ready. And this I ended up setting at 360 degrees, and we were going to do it for 300 seconds. And this is per Cricut's heat guide. I used the settings that were indicated for their ceramic coasters. Because these particular little ceramic pieces that I'm using are not Cricut pieces. To my knowledge, they don't have ornaments as of yet. So cutting down my little design, cutting off the excess, and I'm going to go ahead and weed it out. And I decided I was going to weed these opposite of each other. I left the heart for one, and then I removed the heart and left the words for the other because I wasn't sure how it was going to work out. I was using kind of this funky pattern, and because I wanted it to be a little bit more interesting than just plain color. So I'll be able to show you how both of them work out. You always want to make sure that you use a lint roller on your pieces before you go ahead and apply your infusible ink, just in case there's anything on there. And then I am putting this down. I had also cut the butcher paper that came with it because we're going to want to make sure that we use that with these as well. And I think I was actually supposed to use some white cardstock underneath, but I ended up sandwiching it with the butcher paper and it worked out fine. So I've got my heat press on top of there for the 300 seconds. Once it's done, you've got to let it cool. You do not want to touch these. So they sat for at least a half hour while I did something else before I unwrapped these. So just be aware of that. And so now I'm going to peel these off, taking all of the little pieces of the transfer, the sheet from the infusible ink off. And you can see Alexa is really easy to read and Kayla not so much. So I would have done better to use a solid color with the font that I used. So perhaps if I used a much chunkier font, or a pattern that wasn't quite as busy, it would have been okay, but you can see the difference there. So now I'm just going to be attaching the little gold lame hangers that came with these, and if you're interested in checking these out, I'll make sure that I have them in my Amazon store for you, and the link is down in my description box for my Amazon store. But I thought they worked really, really well, and it's such a neat thing because these don't end up scratching off or anything. I mean, they are infused right into the ceramic ornament. I think they're really cool. But let me know what you think.
Okay, everybody, that's it for today. If you enjoyed the project, please give me a big thumbs up. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you liked the most. And if you haven't already, I hope that you'll consider subscribing and hitting that bell so you get notified every time I upload a new video. But until the next time, be well, be kind, and make it a great day. Thank you so much for watching. Take good care. Bye.